All right, let's dive right into this explainer and look at a really massive shift happening right now. We're talking about how a nation of over a billion people is fundamentally changing the way it powers its vehicles. Based on a comprehensive report from Niti Aayog, we're looking at a wildly ambitious roadmap. Between 2020 and 2025, India is literally altering the chemical composition of the fuel that goes into millions of cars and bikes across the country. To understand why they're doing this, just look at this staggering number: $551 billion. That represents India's net oil import cost for just a single period, 2020 to 2021. That's 185 million metric tons of petroleum, which makes up an enormous 85% of the country's entire oil requirement. Just think about that scale for a second. Every single time global crude oil prices twitch, a massive economic shockwave ripples right through the Indian economy. For a fast-growing nation, relying on foreign imports for 85% of your transport energy, that's a pretty heavy anchor to drag around. So, to shrink that massive financial and environmental burden, India is aggressively pivoting to biofuels. And specifically, they are looking at ethanol. Yes, the exact same alcohol used in hand sanitizers, disinfectants, and beverages is now going to power our daily commutes. By shifting to domestically produced ethanol, India projects it could save an unbelievable $4 billion every single year. That's 30,000 crore rupees annually. It's a massive strategic move. It creates local jobs, heavily promotes the Make in India initiative, and significantly chops down carbon emissions. Now, you're going to hear the term E20 a lot. So let's quickly break down what it actually is. It simply means blending 20% domestically produced ethanol with 80% imported fossil fuel petrol. Currently, the national average hovers around a 5% blend, so E5, with a push to hit E10 as the new baseline. But E20, that is the ultimate goal for 2025. It is literally diluting foreign dependency with homegrown energy. Moving on to Section 1, Global Ethanol Leaders and how India compares. Because, India isn't the first country to attempt a transition this huge. They're actually learning from a few key players who've already rewritten the rules of the game. When we look at the global market, the US and Brazil are the absolute titans, producing roughly 84% of all fuel ethanol globally. And their costs are pretty low, hovering around 60 to 61 cents a liter. But then, look at India's prices. They range from 63 cents up to about 86 cents per liter. So why the premium? Well, it's actually a deliberate government strategy. India fixes the raw material prices for sugarcane and food grains to guarantee a minimum support price. It basically ensures that this whole energy revolution directly enriches local farmers, rather than just padding corporate bottom lines. And we really have to look at Brazil as the gold standard here. They enacted an aggressive blending mandate, requiring anywhere from 18 to 27.5% ethanol in all their gasoline. Combine that with a massive adoption of flex fuel vehicles, which can literally run on 100% ethanol, and Brazil successfully shifted nearly half of their entire transportation energy away from pure fossil fuels by 2019. It's living proof that a massive national fleet can totally transition away from standard petrol. Which brings us to Section 2. Under the hood, vehicle technology for E20. What exactly is going on inside your car or bike's engine when you pump an E20 blend instead of regular petrol? Well, the chemistry of ethanol is fascinating, but for standard engines, it's kind of tricky. See, ethanol is highly corrosive to older rubbers and plastics. If you pour E20 into an older car designed for pure petrol, it will literally start eating away at the plastic fuel lines and elastomers. So modern vehicles have to be physically upgraded with new materials. On top of that, ethanol has a much higher octane rating than standard gasoline. To prevent engine knocking and to actually get the benefit of that higher octane, manufacturers have to totally recalibrate the engine's spark timing and tweak the compression ratios. Let's jump into Section 3, the trade-offs, environment versus efficiency. Look, any technological leap this big comes with strict trade-offs. And impartial data from the Niti Aayog report lays out exactly what drivers stand to gain and what they stand to lose. It's a real balancing act between breathing cleaner air and how far you can drive on a single tank. On the environmental side, the impact is absolutely massive. Because ethanol has a higher oxygen content, it allows for a much more complete combustion in the engine. The result? A 50% reduction in toxic carbon monoxide emissions in two-wheelers and a 30% drop in four-wheelers. Plus, overall hydrocarbon emissions drop by a full 20%. Sure, there's a tiny uptick in unregulated carbonyl emissions, but the heavy, regulated pollutants, they drop like a stone, just by switching the fuel blend. But here is the reality check for consumers. Ethanol packs less energy per drop. It has about 2/3 the calorific value of standard petrol. That means if you're driving an older four-wheeler designed for pure petrol and you fill it with E20, you're going to see a noticeable 6 to 7% drop in your mileage. For bikes, it's about a 3 to 4% drop. You will literally burn through more fuel to travel the exact same distance, unless your engine is specifically tuned for E20. And getting a car perfectly tuned to offset that mileage drop, that means buying a brand new E20 compliant model. According to the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, these material and engine upgrades will hit consumers with a slightly higher upfront cost. We're talking about 3,000 to 5,000 rupees extra for a car, and maybe 1,000 to 2,000 rupees for a bike. Now, if you're wondering about fully flex fuel vehicles like they have in Brazil, India is hitting the pause button on those for now. They'd cost up to 25,000 rupees more upfront, and experts say it only makes economic sense if pure ethanol is sold at a massive 30% discount compared to petrol. Section 4. The Road to 2025, India's E20 rollout. So how on earth does a country actually pull this off by 2025? Deploying a massive infrastructure change across the entire subcontinent is no joke. It all boils down to supply. To hit a 20% blend everywhere by 2025, India has to aggressively scale up its ethanol production capacity to a mind-blowing 1,016 crore liters. That is over 10 billion liters. Right now, combined distillation capacity is only sitting at around 684 crore liters. So we're talking about a massive, urgent ramp-up in biorefineries and distillation infrastructure just to keep up with a booming vehicle population. To actually get that much volume sustainably, the whole strategy has to shift. Historically, India made most of its ethanol from sugarcane molasses. The problem? Sugarcane and paddy are incredibly thirsty crops. They consume about 70% of the country's irrigation water. So to hit 10 billion liters without draining the water supply, they're moving beyond traditional crops. The new policy lets them tap into surplus race from the Food Corporation of India, food grains that are damaged and unfit for humans, and less water-intensive crops like maize. It's a really brilliant move, literally turning agricultural waste and surplus into transportation wealth. So when does this actually start affecting you and your commute? Well, here's the official roadmap. Back in April 2022, E10 became the nationwide bridge fuel, a protective grade for older cars. Fast forward to April 2023, and all new vehicles rolling out were E20 material compliant. That means their hoses and seals won't melt away, even if the engines aren't perfectly tuned yet. And the big one, by April 2025, vehicles with engines specifically tuned for E20 will launch nationwide. Maximum efficiency, minimal emissions. But all of this leaves us with one massive, lingering question. We know the auto industry can build the engines of tomorrow. We know farmers can grow the feedstock. But can the nation's storage and distribution networks actually keep pace? See, ethanol loves water. It absorbs it easily. That means it needs highly specialized storage tanks, underground pipelines, and completely modified fuel dispensers to safely get this blend to every single pump across India by 2025. So, will the infrastructure actually be ready when you pull up to the pump next year? It's a monumental challenge, and the clock is definitely ticking.